What's up everyone? So today we'll be focusing on if statements, so let's get straight into it. If statements are used to create logical flow in your code. So for example, like a lot of times you'll want something to happen only if a certain condition is true. And if you can remember in our previous video about booleans, we touched up on the idea that any boolean expression will evaluate to true or false. And if we use booleans in conjunction with if statements, we can create some control flow in our code. So I'm going to write a quick example to demonstrate this. Okay, so now we have two variables, a which stores 5 and b which stores 10. So sometimes we'd want something to happen only if a is greater than b. So to do that, we'd first start by saying if, and then we follow that with our condition, and our condition in this case would be a is greater than b. And then we use the colon, and then on the next line we have to indent 4 spaces. This will tell Python like anything that's indented under this if statement is specific for that if statement. So run this code that's indented if this condition is true. So in this case we'll just print a is greater than b. So now let's run our code. So you see we get no output. Nothing happens when we run our code. But if I were to change this to a greater number, like 15, and then we were to rerun our code, now you see we get that print statement, because now the condition is true, and so it's going to run the code that's indented under the if statement. Okay, but what if we wanted something else to happen if this condition is not true? So to do that, we just have to say else, and then colon, and then the same thing we have to indent. And then we type whatever code we want to run if the condition is not true. So in this case we'll print. So now let's change our number back to 5 and then run our code. So remember before we got no output, but now that we have the else statement, now we get the print statement that a is not greater than b. So you see it basically executes the code that's indented under the else because this condition is not true. Okay, what if we wanted to test for multiple different conditions? Like for example, right now we're only testing if a is greater than b, but what if we also wanted to test if a is less than b or if a is equal to b? Then to do that we can use the elif statement, and elif is just shorthand for else if. So in other languages you would say else if, but in Python it's elif. And elif has to come after an if, after an if statement. And so if this condition is not true, then it's going to check for this condition. So elif, if we want to test if a is, say, less than b, now we get that b is greater than a. So this just demonstrates the use of the elif statement. If we want to test multiple conditions that are kind of related, then we'd use the elif statement. So this just demonstrates the use of the elif statement. And we can also have an else statement here. And in this case, the only thing that would be true if these two statements were not true would be that a and b are equal. So in our else statement, we know that a and b would be equal. So a is equal to b. Because if it's not because if a is not greater than b and a is not less than b, then it has to be equal to b. So just to show you all, if we run our code, let's make them equal. So now a and b are both equal, and now now these two conditions should equate to false. And then so our else block should run. So let's make sure that works. You see we get a is equal to b because a is equal to b. So we mentioned this in the Boolean expression video, but you can also use the keywords and or inside of your Boolean conditions. So for example, if we have x is equal to true and y is equal to false, if we were to run this now, this would equate to if true print yo. So it will print. It will print because right now we're just testing if true. But we can kind of enhance this Boolean condition by saying and y. So now this is testing for more than one thing. So this if statement will only execute if both of these are true. So x and y have to be true in order for this to execute. So just to show you all, this won't execute because y is false. However, if we use the OR keyword, then this will execute if one of them, if at least one of them is true. They could both be true, but at least one of them has to be true if you're using OR. So this is basically saying if true or false. Since one of them is true, it will execute. And just to show you all, you see we get the print statement. And just to show you all, if we change x to false, so now they're both false. So this is testing if false or false, then we're not going to get anything because neither of them are true. So if you're using OR, at least one of them has to be true. If you're using AND, all of them have to be true. Using AND or will help you get a more specific condition. So the next thing I want to talk about is nested if statements. So sometimes we want to have an if statement inside of another if statement. And this example kind of demonstrates that. So first we have a variable x, which is 50. And so first we check if x is greater than 10. And then inside that code, we have another if statement that checks if x is greater than 20. So if x is greater than 20, then we'll print x is greater than 20. But else, we'll print x is greater than 10, but less than 20. And we know that this is true because this else block will only execute if x is greater than 10. So that's why we know that it's greater than 10. And we also know that it's less than 20 because this first if statement didn't fire. Like this, if this condition wasn't true, then this else statement will run. So just with this example, we can test out some values for 50 or for x just to make sure that it works. So right now x is 50, so it should print out that x is greater than 20. So let's just make sure x is greater than 20. Okay, next we'll try say like 15. And we get that x is greater than 10 but less than 20. And then if just say if x is 5, then nothing's going to happen because this condition will equate to false, and so nothing will happen because we have no print statements anywhere to account for that. So you see when we run our code, we get nothing in the output. So the last thing I want to talk about is the pass keyword. So one thing to know is that you have to have some sort of code underneath the indentation. So right now, like if I were to try to run this code how it is, I'd get an error. Just to show you all, you see we get a syntax error. And that's because we don't have anything underneath this if statement. Like we don't have any code to execute for that if statement. So for example, like if you don't know exactly what you want to do yet for this if statement, like you don't have the code written out, then you can use the pass keyword just to avoid getting an error. So pass is essentially just doing nothing. It's just basically like an empty print statement. It'll avoid getting that error. So now if we rerun our code, you see we don't get any errors, but it's not going to do anything. So pass essentially will just help you avoid getting an error if you don't have any code to put underneath your if statement. So that's about it for if statements. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.